Which were some of the highlights in your career that made you the person you are today and also the leader you are today? Because we can say you are the co-chairman of Fusalp.
Yes, my grandparents have had an immense impact on me. No, it's all about instinct. It's really a conversation between style and technicity. How can you impact whatever people tell you around? Trust yourself, listen to yourself. Because if you're wrong, that's going to be your mistake. But you need to trust yourself.
Welcome to a new episode of the Luxury Leadership Talks, a podcast and videocast in which I have the pleasure and honor to meet inspiring leaders of the luxury industry across all kind of industry segments. Leaders that made history and will make history. My name is Michaela Merk. I'm the host of this podcast and also professional keynote speaker, speaking about the excellence in leadership and customer experience. And for the episode of today, I have the pleasure to present to you a woman and a role model. She is an exceptional entrepreneur. She's audacious, you'll see. She is authentic and also the granddaughter of the famous tennis legend, René Lacoste. Sophie Lacoste, welcome Sophie, and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Michaela. I'm very happy to be here with you today.
Sophie, of course, this whole episode is going to be about you, your leadership, your personality as well. But maybe you can share with everybody who is listening to you, or maybe sees you as well, because we're filming everything now. Which were some of the highlights in your career that made you the person you are today and also the leader you are today? Because we can say you are the co-chairman of Fusalp.
Yes. There are many things. I think we really, everything that we encounter builds what we are.
Influences you
exactly.
In a way.
My grandparents have had an immense impact on me.
I'm super curious also to hear at the beginning about your relationship with your grandfather, René, who created the crocodile brand, the brand Lacoste. Who doesn't know Lacoste? I would like to ask you, how do you remember him? What kind of a person was that, and how did he impact you as a person, maybe also as a leader in his own leadership role?
Yes, I remember him very well because he died when I was 20 years old.
Oh, yeah.
And I was very close to him. I had that very good luck to spend lots of time with him and his wife, because it's difficult to speak about René without speaking about his wife, Simone John-Lachaume, who was an immense golf champion also. I called them twice a week all my teenage, since I was 12, because they were living in south of France, but they came 2 or 3 months per year in Paris. And I went there, I spent a lot of time with them. But I was really, it was not only for because I was really passionate about them. And also with my other grandmother, I was very willing to take everything I could take from them.
What kind of activities did you do? You remember that really marked yourself?
We spoke a lot. I have to say, we spoke a lot. I was very bad at tennis and golf. So it was really not my thing. So I decided, I was lucky because I had a back problem, which was not that very serious. But the doctor said, no, you cannot make too much sport. So I went to see my grandparents and said, no, okay, tennis, golf, I cannot play anymore. So we're going to have to build a relationship on something else. So I did play with them, some of not tennis, but golf. I did. So really it's being born in that family, is being born very close to incredible people that they were very humble. Maybe humble is not the right word. It's they knew who they were. They were very, very self-confident, and they didn't need to show it off. So they didn't need to speak about them. They didn't need to impress people. They were just acting, seeing how life was going, what they wanted to do next. Even my grandfather, even when he was 90 years old, he was full of projects. You know, he was an inventor. Wow. People don't know about that, but it really is. DNA is the one of an engineer and of an inventor. He invented the first metal tennis racket. He invented the first machine to throw balls. The biggest achievement he made was in the airplane, because he was an amateur tennis player. He didn't earn any money with that. He didn't earn any money with Lacoste,
even though he won.
Yeah, he won the biggest championships. But at that time, it was an amateur, so there were no professional sports players, so there was no money to earn. Even with Lacoste, the Lacoste shirt company that he created in the end of the 20s, he didn't really earn money with that. He was just
not even with that, which is such an iconic
at
product.
the end of his life, of course, but not because it's my uncle, in fact, that really developed Lacoste. But for himself, it was a Saturday morning job, and it was only a white polo shirt that tennis players were wearing because they loved the Lacoste logo. He invented the first logo. There was no logo before Lacoste.
There was no logo before Lacoste?
It's the first one.
In fashion or?
In fashion.
In fashion.
In fashion, of course, logos of companies. But in fashion, the first guy to have had the idea to put something on a clothing was him. You know, at that time, there was no prêt-à-porter. It was only measure-made. So there was no brand.
No, and here we are talking about the 30s, right?
Exactly. And I think he was the first one really to see clothing as a social gesture.
Do you still remember what you really wanted to express with the crocodile on it?
I think the crocodile is a joke at the beginning. You know the story.
He was called.
It was called the crocodile because it was really not funny to watch him play tennis. You know, he was like a crocodile. He was studying a lot the game of his opponents, and he had hundreds of book notes with everything, any mistake that his opponent could make or whatever. So, and he was really playing at the back of the field and really waiting for his opponent to make a mistake. So, you know, it's like the crocodile who catches his prey.
In the very moment.
And wait for him to die. It was really, really that thing. And so a journalist called him Crocodile. He thought it was funny. And at that time, when you entered a tennis court, you entered it with a jacket. And so he had a crocodile embroidered on his jacket to make it funny, and he was not comfortable because at that time you were wearing some suit shirts to play tennis, and he wanted some formal shirts, and so that's why he invented the polo shirt, to be able to be more comfortable, to resist to the very hot summers in America, and so to have a breathable fabric, which is quite what we do now. You know, it's really about technicity. It's about making an invention that will change people's life. And that's what we try to do here with Fusalp, because it's all about technicity and style. But our technicity is very, very high.
You mentioned Fusalp. So let's talk about your legacy and how you built your own career, because of course you are born in this legendary family, golf and tennis, especially since you said you spent a lot of time with them. So I think it's very important.
It's very important, the direct relationship, but also I went to look for it. You know, I really went to speak with them.
So how did it? Are there other stepstones that mark your career? Because what I remember when I created my own company, this was in 2009. My first client was Lacoste, and I had the opportunity of building their first e-commerce platform together with all the license partners. And you will never forget, of course, your first client. It was an amazing project, and probably this boutique is one of the biggest one, if not the biggest one worldwide today.
Of course.
E-commerce and all the omni-channel operations that go along with the boutiques of Lacoste worldwide. And then you took over and became 2 years after, which was, I think, in 2012, correct me, you became the president of the board of directors of Lacoste SA. Is that correct? And then your family decided, it was 1 year after, to sell big portions of the stock of the company to the Swiss company Maus Frère. And then you decided to step out of the Lacoste business and do something extremely audacious by a sleeping beauty. I would call it the sleeping beauty in luxury ski and lifestyle, Fusalp. How did you make this choice? Why did you choose Fusalp? And this is, by the way, why we are here now in your beautiful showroom. Why Fusalp? How did this happen?
You know, it's all about instinct anyhow.
Okay.
you can have some very strict rules or anyway, or analysis or whatever, but it's a gut feeling at one moment. I mean, it's something that you feel you should do. In fact, we bought Fusalp exactly 1 year after.
Together with your brother,
with
right?
My brother, exactly, and also with my sister-in-law, Mathilde, who is our artistic director. We bought the company exactly 1 year after we sold Lacoste. So it was really quite short.
Yes,
I have to say, 1 year
very
is very short.
So there must have happened something.
Yeah, I mean, we were looking for something to buy. We were for a brand, of course, because that's what we know, the brands. But we didn't have any specific industry. I mean, we were quite open, but of course, we bought a garment company, which has to work in the sports environment. So it's things that we of course knew before,
and somehow also, I imagine, fitted in the philosophy of your grandfather, who taught you so many things.
Exactly. And my mother is from Haute-Savoie, from the Alps, so we've always been skiing a lot. So it's something that we knew, and yes, it was an evidence somehow. You know, it's something that you really see. It's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
The brand was for us. There was something that we understood. Mathilde had a clear vision. We were sharing that vision together, and so that was something very, very strong. And it was obvious.
So for those who among you who might not be so familiar with Fusalp, Sophie, can you give us some indications about how to recognize Fusalp when you are somewhere in town or also on the skiing slopes? What is it that makes it unique?
It's really a conversation between style and technicity. So really you can recognize Fusalp. It's a question of silhouette, of course. And it's a style and technicity. It's garments that really can be used in many, many occasions, that are breathable, that gives you protection, but at the same time are very stylish, very elegant, and timeless, in fact.
And I also see the color.
The color?
It always, because we have a lot of black, and then contrasting with a lot of color. That's what I see when I am skiing. You can identify.
But that's about skiing.
That's about skiing.
Yeah, that's the beauty of making ski garments, is that you can really have fun with the colors. You know, you can have very bright green, bright blue, lots of drawings. It's very, very, I mean, ski helps to be much more inventive.
Yes, but not all of the brands do that actually. And I figure out, and I figure out that this is also something that allows to easily recognize, even from far, even without seeing a logo, I can tell this is Fusalp by looking at the colors, the bright red, the bright green, the bright yellow. And then of course we have the more sober colors, black and white. I mean, this brand, is there a key message or something you really learned from your grandfather that he told you is important in your life?
As I told you, of course, it's the way of seeing life and responsibility. around us. And also, I think, a way of do not take yourself too seriously, because it's the most important thing is to act, not to think about what you do or I mean, it's important to be proud of yourself. It's important to give gratitude to others, but also to yourself and all that we all work on now. But, they were incredible people, but they never thought about that. They were only thinking about what they had to do next. Mm-hmm. And it's really stay into the action and think about what's going to be great tomorrow. How can you impact? Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think the word impact was not a word that they were using, of course.
No, which has become now very fashionable.
Exactly. But I think they were certainly the most impactful people I ever met.
And you have also shared with me that he had an impact in a time where we had the First World War.
Yes, it's true. It's true. And somebody told me that once, because, it was the world between the two wars, that the Musketeers were very famous in France. We also had Herzog, who was a great alpinist, and these were heroes. Yes. And at that time, France needed heroes after the war. It was, of course, an economic growth, what we call les années folles in French, and people needed these heroes. So they were very, very famous. Mm-hmm. They were very, very. There were lots of light on them. Mm-hmm. And my grandmother also, she was the first non-British to win the British Open. She was a great champion. They traveled to the USA when she was, my grandmother, she was 17 in really early 20s. So they really went through many things, this big fame, but also war after that. Mm-hmm. And so they had seen lots of things, so they didn't need to impress people for sure. And they were really thinking about the impact that they could leave. Mm-hmm.
Let's now talk about Fusalp and the revival of this brand, which you found, let's say, sleeping. Why did it fall asleep? And what did you do to wake it up again? Bring it to today, huge success, because I remember I love skiing, and just this year I went to Tignes and I saw that one skier out of 3 was almost wearing Fusalp. And I also checked out some numbers. In the moment when you bought Fusalp, it was like 5 million euros. Mm-hmm. Today we are at 60 million. It's sold through 400 stores across the world, 64 own standing stores. Mm-hmm. You tell us more about that, but why did it fall asleep and how did you revive it again?
It fell asleep, I think, like many other brands. It's a 70 years old story. So, there's been all this big textile crisis that we've had in the 80s. So the people who were running it at that time, they tried to really focus on the markets that they were working the most. So really to try to answer the need of a specific consumer, with all the Chinese production that put the prices very, very low at that time. Mm-hmm. And so it was a big revolution in textiles. So it went through all that. And at the end sold some quite good quality products, mid-range, but lost many market shares because of Decathlon, because of other very competitive competitors at that time. And so it was a bit lost somehow.
In which hands was the brand when you bought it?
It was of a wonderful man who had bought the brand in the beginning of the 80s with 2 of his friends for 1 franc.
Oh.
1 euro, I can say, at that time, because the company went bankrupt. So they were employees of Fusalp, and they've been able to take over for 1 euro. And so he bought the shares of his friends throughout the time, And when we met him, he was at the beginning looking for investors. And we told him that we could not invest if we were not running the business. And then he said, okay, I'm going to sell. It's a good end for me. I'm going to sell. We really got on very well. It was a quite quick conversation. I think it took us 4 months or something. And we were very happy to be able to take the responsibility for the brand. And I think it's great to buy a brand, because then you're only a passeur somehow. It's not, I mean, we didn't have any incredible idea to build. So we thought buying a brand was good for us. I mean, that was something obvious. And, we're going to work for it for a while, as much as we can, and really try to give it the right position. And after that, for any reason, somebody else is going to take over. And I think that story is very, very powerful to see all the people that have taken care of Fusalp, and they all bring their share of the work. And I think this is very nice.
Talking about people, I mean, to build and rebuild a success story like you have done it.
People.
How did you find passionate people who were willing to go with you on this new journey?
It had to be passionate people, because it was, I mean, we didn't have the means to pay people the same prices than other companies. So it's really about entrepreneur spirit, to believe in the project. And I mean, the project is beautiful. There are many brands, but brands such as Fusalp, there are not so many of them. So
how could you feel that somebody who has been around you, with you, is really passionate, sincerely passionate? How can you detect it in people and the ones whom you brought on board?
It's a matter of involvement, really. When you see people involved, as if it was their own business and really willing to change things, it's a matter of the passion. You feel it anyway. And of course, it's a matter of fit, because we have to be on the same spirit, to have the same values. It's very important to us. And because Fusalp is a very authentic brand, it's about audacity. So you cannot take yourself too seriously. We're doing fashion, but we don't want to have, sometimes not everyone, but fashion can have a certain kind of spirit, and we want to keep the sporty spirit that we have. That's very important. It's about elegance. It's about friends, of course. People have to understand what is friends. So we have many French people, of course, working for Fusalp, but we also have, I think we counted the other day, like 25 different nationalities in-house in France, of course, and abroad, of course. So it's a question of mix also. When you hire people, you have to have several kinds of personalities. We also, of course,
diversity.
Diversity a lot. It's difficult to have diversity in any field, in every field, but we really look for it. And of course, we work in fashion, so we are more women than men. But we have to work a lot on salaries, so that women can have the same kind of growth than men, because as well as I do, that it's very difficult for a woman to on the journey, if you stay in the same company, to have the good salary growth. I mean, you don't have the same path than a man, so it's very important to be very cautious on all that. And yes, to be able to also if you want passionate people, you need to give them passion, and to make them learn and nurture themselves from what we do.
So to allow them to learn also from what you are doing as a role model, and
together as a team.
Together as a team. How did you proceed in this process? How did you start when you took over the brand? What were the first steps that you took?
What we do first, with Philippe and Alexandre Fauvet, also who was the CEO at that time, was really to work on the product. to be able to make a very specific product that was Fusalp. Of course, we worked also on the logo, which was not used at that time. So we wanted to use it again. The
it
original.
Was not used anymore?
No, they were using another logo. So we wanted to take back the original logo.
Okay.
Mathilde also was crucial in all these thoughts because she's really the strong one. She's so talented and really she has the right vision. So we really believe in her. So it was working on the products, of course, to give them the right positioning, the right price point, the right style, the right identity, and also about distribution. So meaning opening our first shops. So the first shop that we've opened was in Le Marais in Paris, and then we've opened the other ones. And also one thing what was very important is that we made a collaboration with Colette. And that was very important to all the buyers worldwide because Colette was so important in our industry.
Also somehow the flagship of trends.
Exactly.
You set a message when you went to Colette, okay, this is going to be hype. This is going to be a future brand to observe and probably a shooting star.
Exactly. So when you were in the Monday morning newsletter, that was so important. Yeah. So for us, the great luck, that Sarah Andelman was was kind enough and interested in our brand to make it appear on the window.
And by the way, I remember very well this first boutique and the first atelier because Alexandre at that time, since we collaborated on the Lacoste project, he invited me and showed me some images of the beginnings and also of the archives. And he said, hey, look, all of those famous skiing champions that were wearing Fusalp, and it's amazing what we can do with this brand. And he made me try on the first creations, and so slim and super elegant. And I immediately fell in love with the brand. But to see what has now come out of this amazing revival is phenomenal.
Do you ski yourself in Fusalp?
I wish and I will. I will.
You have to try it, it's something once you've tried, you there's no way back.
Yeah.
It's, the trousers are incredible. Yeah. And I think they're very well, the price point is very good and the feet, the comfort.
Very slim. And
it's slim, but it gives you really a shell.
And, so I think this is going to be my Christmas. Gift. Which were the challenges that you encountered in this new revival journey?
There were many of them, of course. I think there's one challenge that we're facing now, because when we bought 15 years ago, you could run a business somehow. And things were quite similar one year to another. Of course, you learn things are happening, but the principle, the hypotheses were quite stable. And now you go from one crisis to another, really. And the industry is very concentrated on a very on very few actors, in fact.
Very few brands that are getting extremely visible and powerful.
Exactly. And so they buy all the maisons everywhere. And you have very, very powerful groups that concentrate all the brands in luxury.
Few independent ones only, especially in the luxury industry.
Exactly. Very few.
And I've seen that one of the big independent ones is very often next to a Fusalp store, Ernest. So it seems you understand each other well.
No, it's
good
true
match.
Because it's of course a very good objective for us to be close to Hermes, and we believe our customers are kind of the same. So it's very important to us to be, in fact, in the luxury environment in the cities, because people then understand more what is the product and the quality of the product. Because what we tend to do, we want to do the best products of the market, really. Yes. We work a lot on it. We have an R&D department in Annecy, where our headquarters is, that makes more than 6,000, 7,000 tests every year. We have a modelism workshop here in Paris, so that we can really work on the perfection of the fit, on the cut, because, you know, technical fabrics are very tough to structure.
Sure.
So it's also about the mix of fabrics between wool and technical, and all that makes a Fusalp garment and all our authenticity. And that really is very, very important.
You talk about the tests. Do you also give some of them to ski champions and test them on the slopes?
Of course. And we also do sponsor the GB team, the GB ski team, the Great Britain
ski team. Not the French one?
Not the French one, because in fact, the British came because they wanted us to sponsor them. So we were very happy to do so. And France as a partner for more than 2 decades, and they don't want to change. So we're very happy to partner with the British team.
So the British skiing team, they get the new models.
But the specific models that we do for them.
Yeah.
Because it's really, you know, Fusalp invented the first racing suit by the end of the 60s for the French ski team, which was the best ski team of the world at that time. They won all the medals and reinvented really the first ski suit. And there's a nice story about that, because René Lacoste, who was an incredible champion, was having his Fusalp ski suit that really they created with the Fusalp team, and they've tried, and, you know, with some blowing machine to see the resistance to air and all that. And so he was going to make a race, and he found his German opponent who they were fighting all the time together. And so they started to make some squats, you know, to train. And then the German guy went on, bent his knees, and the suit really unfolds. I mean, s'est déchiré,
scratch
on his back. So he could not take the race. And Leo was very happy because his suit really went perfect. We still have it, so there's no scratch yet.
Resistance over
exactly. Even 60 years later, there's still no scratch. So he was very proud of his ski suit. And so we have that history in our roots, in our DNA, and so that's very important to work on that. And also we are working also with other champions that we, more than the British ski team, that we partner not for the racing, but for the other activities. And, it's nice because they're very, close to the brand. And one of them, who is a Swedish guy, he came once with the jacket from his grandfather. And that was a Fusalp, and because in Sweden Fusalp was very strong in the 80s, and we thought also it was a great inspiration, because we thought, yes, that's what we want to do, speaking about sustainability, because it's one of the main subjects that our industry has now. We felt that what we wanted to do is make so high quality products that the grandchildren of our clients will want to wear it still. And it's a matter of quality, but it's also a matter of style, so that you don't get tired from a jacket or from a trousers. And so that's where we had the idea to be able to give a 5 years guarantee to all our jackets, and moreover, the ability to repair for life any kind of garment.
Sustainability. I mean, this is a big topic right now. I've just come across a recent study from Bain & Company saying that around 60% of luxury customers look at sustainability today in their purchasing intention for luxury products. What would you say is today, or how did you integrate sustainability in this new journey, this new revival of Fusalp?
I have to say that I'm surprised by that number, because we really don't see it with our clients. You know, they don't ask the question. I mean, that's something that they really, maybe it's a matter of age or, I don't know, geography or whatever. But anyhow, I feel deeply, I mean, that it's one of the main topics that we have to work on, of course, for any kind of reason. And eco-conception is really something that we want to work on, that is really in the middle of our conception work, because of course our main impact is on our products. So we need to work on that. We work a lot on fabrics, on to recondition, to use all the
recycle the remaining textiles that have not been used.
Of course, that, but also all the, because you know, in clothing we have lots of plastic bags and protection, hangers and all that. So we have a big program on reusing things many times, so that you don't throw away the plastic bag, because there's not and of course the recycling of fabrics and all that. But you know, the great difficulty in that you compare, you know, in French we say you compare potatoes to orange.
So wool is a material that is easily reintegrated into nature, right?
Exactly. But at the same time, it is the most impactful when you produce it, because you have to raise ships.
Yes.
So it's, you know, you can compare things, but you really have to see the whole life cycle of a product. And one thing that I'm sure, because it's, you have to prevent from good ideas, you know, you have some good ideas that come, but you don't really analyze what the impact is throughout the whole life cycle of the product. So you can take many bad decisions. One thing that I'm sure of is the longest you keep a garment, the less impact it is.
Yes.
So, I think that anyhow we have to make products that
last the longest
very long
possible time, without being thrown away.
Exactly.
And here we get back to quality.
Exactly.
When you took over the brand, obviously you had to reinstall trust as well. Trust among the customers, trust among your teams as well, who are willing to work with you and give a lot. Trust among partners who are supplying. What was it that allowed you to create trust again in all the teams that contributed to this new success story?
I think the team that we were, Alexandre, Philippe, Mathilde, and I, with all our Lacoste background, was really reassuring for people. The people that we hired then, who were very, very professionals, and the connection that we had, the network.
Yes.
I think mostly that's what helped us. And of course, the brand. I mean, and one thing for sure, is the success of Moncler. I can say it.
Okay.
Because really, of course, they're much bigger than we are. But, for the partners, the banks, the landlords, I mean, all these people.
All investors.
Exactly. Investors that would not know so much about textile. I mean, would have big ideas. The model of Moncler, which was rising so highly, they said, okay, if Moncler does that, maybe we can do something with Fusalp as well. So it was
maybe there's
kind
a big
of
potential.
Exactly, to show the potential of that. Even if our path is very different than from Moncler, we're French, we don't do the same products, we don't have the same philosophy, I think, and they're much bigger, as I said, much bigger than we are. But still, it was something to show.
And I also remember that you implemented 2021, the first partnership with Chloé, right?
Yes.
And then in 2023 with Pucci.
Exactly.
Why did you choose these partners? All, of course, luxury brands, but why them? And what was the benefit?
The collaboration have to be very meaningful, otherwise it's clueless. So, with Chloé, in fact, it was a very, very nice collaboration, because Chloé was born the same year than we were, so 1952.
Oh, so there was the story of the beginning.
Exactly. And the style, also it was a real connection between our two artistic directors. That was something very important. And they felt they could and it was, the products were incredible. The collection was incredible. And because there were so many links between the two brands, in very, very feminine brands, it was an only feminine products, Pucci and Chloé also.
Yes.
And so something was very, very strong. Pucci, it's also a question of connection between people, of course. And Pucci, it's also a question of connection because Mathilde and Camille, the artistic director of Pucci, knew each other before. Emilio Pucci was a ski instructor, going to St. Moritz. So there was something strong between ski and Pucci. That's why Camille came to us to say, okay, maybe we could do something. And we found that the designs from Pucci could look so nice on our products that there was something very, very fun, Barbarella style, that we
very
enjoyed
colorful,
a lot.
very joyful at the same time, and playful and very.
Yeah, we really felt that it would bring something to the brand in both collaborations.
How long did the collaborations then last?
2 years.
2 years.
2 years each.
In each case.
Yeah, we feel that the first year is great, but then people we don't make such a big production, so people just get to know a little bit about it and then it's gone.
Yeah.
So it's nice to be able to do it 2 years. So it does make, it's also a question of sustainability of the work we do, you know, because if it's lots of work, lots of human implications. So if it's better to make it last for a longer time, I think.
So which qualities or leadership qualities would you say are extremely precious and important to have when you collaborate with another brand, different teams? And
it's all about agility and how to listen to the other brand's needs.
So you listen to the other brand's needs, and at the same time you have your own needs.
Of course.
And then when your teams collaborated with their teams, what do you think is important to have in terms of personality traits that you can collaborate together?
It's really a question of trust and agility, and you know, if you speak the same language, listen to each other so that you can really say what is important to you and be aware of what is important for the other brand, then it goes smoothly. Anyhow, there are some collaboration that we've stopped because it was the collaboration, the relationship was not smooth enough. We all, the other brand and ourselves have lots of things to do, lots of work to do. It's incredible to make collaboration. It helps a lot the brand, but it has to be a joyful moment, something where the productivity is good. If it's only a matter of arguing and not getting on, I stop it very quickly.
Which values, or what role did values play in the success of the revival of Fusalp? When you look at the values of your own, the values of course, Fusalp as it used to be, as it is today, what can you say about the role of values? And also, did you change the values that you identified how it was in the past to how it is today and how you want it to be in the future?
No, that's not how we did it. In fact, we asked ourselves, what are the values of Fusalp?
Okay.
And of course, I guess that the one that we identified were values that we could rely on, that would fit us. Otherwise, we wouldn't have seen them. So it's about audacity.
Yes.
It's about boldness. It's about optimism, aesthetic. And so these values are really our core values, and that they are the ones that give the authenticity to Fusalp, that make Fusalp what it is.
Yes.
And so that means, of course, in product-wise, but also for the people who work here. And we need to have that audacity, to have that sense of aestheticism, and also this optimism. You know, I always speak a lot about joy. We speak about the joy of movement, because at the end of the day, we are here to express ourselves, to learn from what we do, and to become a better version of ourselves. So it has to be in the joy and optimism spirit.
By the way, in the very beginning, who created Fusalp? Who imagined, who brought up this idea of creating these super streamlined, tight-fitting, elegant, chic skiing outfits?
Fusalp was created in 1952 in Annecy by two tailors who made suits, but they loved sports, so they decided to make to bring their savoir-faire to a sport garment, and so to be able to bring that cut, that's very specific cut. And then they get to know all the ski champions, and so they've been able to create a ski garment that would help the ski activity, and then from one thing led to another.
So they analyzed also the needs of the skiing champions in order to already be in this level of excellence.
Exactly.
All
and
the
they were really inventors. It's funny because, you know, the ski trousers and also the ski suit, they have some kind of band on the side, and some line on the side, because at that time the stretch fabric, it was only one way. You know, now you have two ways stretch, you know, from the side and up and down.
Yes.
So that makes it flexible all around.
All around.
Exactly. But at that time there was only one way. And he loved cowboys, Western movies. And so he was watching one cowboy movie, and he saw some American soldiers, you know, who had these patrols, who had these blue trousers with a white line on the side. And so he said, okay, I can do the same thing and bring my stretch fabric on the other side. So that will make it that will give all the mobility.
A 360 degree stretch possibility.
Exactly. That's what we call mechanical stretch.
Mechanical stretch.
Yeah. And so he invented that. So really they were tailors, of course, but also inventors, really looking for the precision on how to improve their products all the time. So that's why this DNA is so strong in the brand.
And they listened, they observed. That's what I hear from what you say.
Exactly.
And what were their names?
Georges Ribola was the main tailor.
Okay. I mean, we are totally in the luxury atmosphere here. What is luxury to you, Sophie?
Luxury to me now is more about experience. I think so. If we speak about luxury, not about luxury industry,
no, luxury in itself.
It's more about experience and freedom. I think that's what people look for. They need to have a very specific experience, and they need to feel free. And then it's about wildness and all that. That's the real luxury now.
And when you compare it to the past and how it might evolve in the future, do you think this is the way to go?
Yeah, I think so, because we live a very difficult time, very anxious, and lots of anxiety, and so we need to find a way to reassure ourselves. So regarding luxury, I think we're gonna be much more in a slow luxury trend. We see it even in Asia, and people will need authenticity and true added value to the products.
So in which way would you say can luxury give this new, let's say, reassurance and also trust maybe in difficult times? In which way can luxury play an important role in that?
It's about fair products. And because, as we said before, clothing, bags, shoes, it's really a social gesture. So how luxury can help that social gesture, so to enable people, to empower people to be there through themselves.
Yeah. When you look back to your own career, is there a particular moment where you say, I'm proud of that, of a particular achievement or something that comes into your mind?
Of course, the foundation.
The foundation?
Yeah. The two, even maybe another one. So the 3 foundations that I've been part of, and
which is the
still
third
proud
one?
of it. It's my own, who works more on fighting against poverty, and also to be able to welcome migrating population in Europe. So it's something that is very, very important to me. And I think, for me, it was a no-brainer thing to do. I wouldn't have been able to live without doing that, for sure, because I think I'm much too lucky to forget about the other people. And of course, that's something which gives me a lot, because, you never do things only for others. You do things because you like to do them.
Yeah.
So I learn a lot from that, and I feel much more fulfilled.
In which way would you say your work in the foundations has also impacted your leadership style?
I think it is a way of, as a leader, as a manager, to really listen to people and to be able to understand what their life is. Of course, you cannot always understand the whole life of people, the context and everything, but to be able to have some empathy.
In your daily life, collaborating with teams, to trying to be as empathetic as possible?
I ask many questions. I ask a lot of questions, always. I'm not coming with the truth. I don't come to say, okay, that's, of course, sometimes I do, but I mean, I'm not the one who knows. I'm the one here to make people think together and find a solution together. So they know much more about the subject that we're working on.
Yes.
So I just need to listen to them and to enable them to do what's needed.
Are there some questions which you could even give as a recommendation to other leaders who don't have that as naturally? What kind of questions are priceless for you when you work with teams that allow you to sense people and what they need?
There are 2 things in your question. When we work on a specific subject, it's not about their needs. It's about what we're going to do, how are we going to organize ourselves, what about ideas could we have, or whatever. It's always, I always start a meeting with asking the questions first. It's really something important to let the people say what they have to say. And so make the atmosphere positive enough so that they won't be scared about expressing things. But at the same time...
So you invite them to ask questions in the beginning, right? Is that what you do?
Yeah, exactly. And also, but that doesn't mean you still need to be very demanding on the level of execution. It does being positive, open-minded, so that people can speak freely and all that, doesn't mean lower the level
of excellence.
Exactly. So that can be challenging, because sometimes when you're nice and smiling to people, they might not be, they might not feel sometimes that the level of excellency is that
It's
demanding.
very high.
And we cannot afford it not to be high.
Yeah.
So it's really how you can make people really express themselves and go further.
Mm-hmm. So you start a meeting and you ask them, what kind of questions do you have? Or what is it? Or,
I start a meeting and I ask them the question. So what do you think we shall do? What is the situation? Mm-hmm. What is your answer to that?
Okay.
What would you do? Okay. And so everybody can express, and then we see what we think about that.
Right. So you listen a lot to the teams.
Exactly.
About a specific issue, a problem, a new collection.
Before telling them, I think that we shall do that, mm-hmm. I ask them what they want to do. Exactly. And because anyway, it's going to be much more efficient if they can really, if the answer belongs to them, yes. You know, mm-hmm. If it's not something that I give to them, yeah. And even if it's right, wrong, or whatever, but if they feel that they have created the answer, then they know what to do.
And this is the perfect way of giving people the feeling I'm involved in the whole story and I contributed to it, so they take exactly. ownership of it.
Exactly.
This is extremely important in the success of a brand, especially when you're demanding in everything. If you had to give an advice to yourself, Sophie, much younger, maybe at the time 12 years old, when you were closely with your grandfather, grandmother, what would you tell you?
One very, very important thing that it took me time to learn is to always listen to yourself. Just trust yourself. And if whatever people tell you around, trust yourself, listen to yourself. Mm. Because if you're wrong, that's going to be your mistake. But you need to trust yourself.
Mm. Very important message. So to trust yourself, you heard it. I think this is a message that we can all tell ourselves, because as soon as we trust ourselves, we are self-confident. Mm. And we also become responsible for our own decisions that we are taking in our life, in the professional life, but also in our personal life, and also for people that surround us. And the best way is to say, okay, I stand into what I think. Sophie, I thank you so much for this very open, very authentic success story from Lacoste, Fusalp, and we were traveling through sports, through luxury, through excellency. And what I wish you and your brand and your teams for the coming years is to continue like this, always towards the star of excellency, and of course a huge successful expansion worldwide, because I know that's what you're also looking at. And all the best, and thank you so much for all you shared, Sophie.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Michaela.
And if you enjoyed this discussion as much as I did, and I hope you learned a lot and learned a lot also for yourself, then share this episode, like it, and also comment it, because it's very, very precious for us and all the people that I invite to learn about your thoughts, because this is a mutual way of learning and sharing and growing and transmitting. As you know, this podcast is on all different channels, audio, but also on YouTube, to see all the beautiful videos and images that we are making. So I am now closing this episode and already look forward to the next one to come. But I'm obviously, like always, not telling you what it is going to be about. Until then, I say goodbye and take in all the learnings that you had from this episode with Sophie Lacoste around Fusalp and, of course, the Lacoste brand as well. Thank you and goodbye.